My beloved child, the moment you clicked on this message was not an accident, it was alignment, it was a silent pull from something deeper than logic, because there is something your soul already knows but your mind is still trying to understand, and today you are about to feel it, not just hear it, not just imagine it, but feel it in a way that shakes something inside you, because the truth you are about to receive is this. Your soulmate did marry someone else. The world saw celebration. The world saw smiles. The world saw rituals and vows and promises being exchanged under lights and music and blessings. Everything looked perfect. Everything looked complete. Everyone thought this was the beginning of their forever. But what nobody saw, what nobody could see, what was hidden behind those eyes and buried deep inside their chest, was you, because even as they stood there, even as they said those words, even as they smiled for the cameras and accepted congratulations, there was a quiet echo inside them that refused to be silenced, a whisper that kept repeating your name, a feeling that refused to settle, a presence that would not leave, and they tried to ignore it. They tried to push it down. They told themselves this is right. This is practical. This is what life demanded. This is what timing forced them into. This is what expectations shaped. But the heart does not operate on logic. The soul does not obey timing, and love, real love, does not disappear just because circumstances changed. And that is why the regret did not wait for days, it did not take weeks, it did not slowly build over time. No, it started the same night, the very same night when everything was supposed to feel right, when everything was supposed to feel complete, when they were finally alone after all the noise, after all the rituals, after all the distractions faded away and silence entered the room. That is when truth walked in with it. That is when the mask fell. That is when the emotions they had been suppressing all day came rushing back like a flood they could not control. And in that silence, in that stillness, they felt the absence of something they thought they could live without. You, and it hit them harder than they expected, because during the chaos of the day they could hide, they could pretend, they could perform, but in the quiet of the night there is no performance, there is no distraction, there is only truth, raw and undeniable, and that truth whispered to them. This is not who your soul chose, this is not the connection that felt like home, this is not the energy that completed you, and suddenly everything felt heavy, suddenly the happiness they were supposed to feel turned into confusion, into restlessness, into a strange emptiness they could not explain to anyone, not even to themselves, and they tried to sleep, they tried to calm their mind, but every time they closed their eyes, memories of you appeared, moments they thought they had moved on from, came back stronger, clearer, more intense, your voice, your presence, your connection. It all returned like it never left, and that is when regret truly began, not as a loud dramatic breakdown that the world could see, but as a quiet ache inside their chest that kept growing with every passing minute, a realization that something irreversible had just happened, a decision made in pressure, in confusion, in fear, had taken them further away from what their heart actually wanted, and the more they tried to convince themselves that they made the right choice, the louder that inner voice became, telling them, if it was right, why does it feel so wrong? If this is love, why does it feel incomplete? If this is your future, why does your past still hold you so tightly? And my beloved child, this is the part nobody talks about, this is the part people hide. Because society celebrates the wedding, but it never shows you the silent emotional aftermath that can follow when a heart is not fully aligned, when a soul is still tied somewhere else. And your soulmate, whether they admit it or not, stepped into that night carrying unresolved emotions, unfinished feelings, and a connection with you that was never truly closed, and that is why regret found them so quickly, because deep down they knew. They didn't just marry someone else, they walked away from something real, something rare, something that their soul recognized but their circumstances could not hold on to, and now they are living with that contrast, that internal conflict between what they chose and what they actually feel. And this does not mean their life stops. This does not mean everything collapses instantly. Life continues. Routines begin. Roles are played. Responsibilities are fulfilled. But beneath all of that, there is a layer of truth that does not go away, a quiet awareness that something is missing, something that no one else can replace, and that something is not just a person, it is a feeling. It is the way you made them feel seen, understood, connected in a way that went beyond surface level. And that kind of connection is not easy to forget. It is not something you can simply replace with another person, no matter how good they are, no matter how right they seem on paper, because soul connections do not operate on comparison, they operate on resonance, and once you have felt that resonance, anything less feels noticeable, anything different feels incomplete, and that is exactly what they are experiencing now, a life that looks right from the outside but feels slightly off on the inside, a constant subtle reminder that something important was left behind, and that realization, that awareness, is where regret lives, not in dramatic tears every moment, but in quiet thoughts, in sudden memories, in random moments where they pause and wonder. What if I had waited? What if I had chosen differently? What if I had followed my heart instead of my circumstances? And those what ifs are powerful. They linger, they grow, they create an emotional space that no one else can fill. And my beloved child, this is not about feeding false hope or creating illusions. This is about understanding emotional reality. People make choices. Sometimes those choices are influenced by fear, by timing, by pressure, by expectations, and sometimes they realize the emotional truth of those choices only after it is too late to easily reverse them, and that realization can be heavy, it can be confusing. It can create a deep inner conflict that they have to carry quietly, because the world expects them to be happy now. The world expects them to move forward without looking back. But the heart does not follow expectations, it follows truth, and the truth is, you were not just someone in their life, you were a connection that left a mark, a connection that their soul still recognizes. And that is why even after everything, even after the wedding, even after the vows, something inside them remains unsettled, something continues to pull them back emotionally, even if physically they have moved on, and this is where your understanding becomes important, because it is easy to romanticize this, it is easy to turn this into a story where everything magically comes back together. But reality is more complex, emotions are real, regret is real, but so are choices, responsibilities, and consequences. And your role in this is not to wait endlessly or to lose yourself in what they feel. Your role is to understand your own worth, to recognize that the connection you shared was real, that it meant something, but also to stay grounded in your own life, your own growth, your own journey, because while they are dealing with their internal conflict, you have your own path to walk, your own life to build, and the most powerful thing you can do right now is not to chase their regret, not to depend on their realization, but to stand strong in your own energy, to continue evolving, to continue becoming the version of yourself that does not need validation from someone else's confusion, because when you do that, you shift everything. You move from being someone who is waiting to someone who is aligned, and alignment attracts clarity, whether that clarity brings them back in some form or leads you towards something even more aligned for you. But one thing is certain. Their regret does not define your future. It only reveals the depth of what was real between you, and now the question is not what they will do, the question is, what will you do with this understanding? Will you hold on to the past, or will you rise into your own power? Because the truth is, my beloved child, your story is not over, not even close, and this moment, this realization, is not the end, it is a turning point. And my beloved child, as the night turned into the early hours of the morning, something even deeper began unfolding inside them, something they could not escape no matter how much they tried to distract themselves, because regret is not just a feeling that comes and goes, it is a slow awakening, a quiet realization that settles into the soul and begins to change the way everything feels. And in those silent hours, when the world was asleep and there was no one watching, no expectations to perform, no smiles to fake, they found themselves staring into the darkness with thoughts they were not prepared to face, because now it was no longer about the wedding. It was no longer about the choice, it was about the emotional truth behind that choice, and that truth was becoming impossible to ignore, because every memory of you began to rise not as something distant, but as something alive, something present, something that still held emotional weight in their heart, and they started to realize that what they had with you was not something ordinary. It was not something that could be easily replaced or forgotten. It was something that had depth, something that had meaning, something that had a connection beyond logic. And the more they tried to push that realization away, the stronger it became, because suppressed emotions do not disappear, they intensify. They find their way back into your awareness in moments when you are most vulnerable. And that is exactly what was happening to them. They were vulnerable now, stripped of all distractions, forced to sit with their own thoughts, and those thoughts kept leading them back to you, back to the way you made them feel, back to the conversations that felt effortless, back to the connection that did not need explanation, and suddenly everything they were experiencing in the present felt different. Not necessarily wrong on the surface, but lacking something they now realized was essential, something they had taken for granted when they had it, and that is the cruel nature of realization. It often comes after the moment has passed, after the choice has been made, after the opportunity has slipped away, and now they were sitting there with that awareness, trying to process it, trying to understand why they feel this way when everything in their life is supposed to be right, why there is this quiet discomfort that does not match the situation they are in, why there is this emotional pull towards someone they are no longer with, and the more they questioned it, the more the answers became clear, because deep down they knew. They did not fully choose this from the heart, they chose it from circumstance, from timing, from pressure, from fear of losing stability, from fear of uncertainty, from fear of waiting, and fear is a powerful force. It can push people into decisions that feel safe in the moment but heavy in the long run, and now they were beginning to feel that weight, not as something dramatic, but as something constant, something that lingers beneath everything they do. And as the days begin to pass, as reality starts to settle in, that feeling does not just disappear, it evolves. It becomes part of their internal world, part of their emotional landscape, and they start to notice it in small moments, in the way they pause during conversations, in the way certain songs suddenly remind them of you, in the way they compare feelings without even wanting to, in the way they feel a gap that they cannot explain to anyone else. And this is where the conflict deepens, because now it is not just about regret, it is about understanding what that regret means, what it says about their current life, what it says about their past, and most importantly, what it says about you, because your presence in their thoughts is no longer occasional, it is consistent, it is recurring, it is something they cannot fully control, and that creates a tension inside them, a tension between what they have committed to and what they still feel. And living in that tension is not easy, it requires them to constantly manage their emotions, to constantly remind themselves of their choices, to constantly try to align their reality with their feelings. But alignment does not happen through force, it happens through truth, and if the truth is not aligned, the feeling remains unsettled. And my beloved child, this is where you must be very clear within yourself, because it is easy to feel connected to this story. It is easy to feel like their regret means something will return, something will come back, something will be fixed, but you must understand that their internal journey is theirs to face, just like your journey is yours. And while their feelings may still be tied to you, while their regret may be real, it does not automatically mean action, it does not automatically mean change, because people often feel deeply but act cautiously, especially when they have already made a life-altering decision. And that is why your focus cannot be on what they might do next, your focus has to be on what you are becoming in this moment, because this situation, as emotional as it is also an opportunity. An opportunity for you to rise above confusion, to rise above attachment, to rise above the need for external validation, and to step into a version of yourself that is whole on its own, that understands love but does not depend on it for identity, that values connection but does not lose itself in it. And when you reach that space, something powerful happens. You stop chasing answers outside and you start creating clarity within, and that clarity becomes your strength, your foundation, your guide, and from that place, whatever is meant to align with you will align naturally, without force, without confusion, without emotional struggle, and whether that includes them in some unexpected way in the future or leads you towards something entirely new and more aligned, it will come from a place of truth, not from a place of longing. And that is the difference between attachment and alignment. Attachment waits and hopes. Alignment moves and attracts, and right now, you are being called to move, to grow, to evolve beyond this moment, because your story is not defined by someone else's regret, it is defined by your own awareness, your own strength, your own ability to transform pain into power, and that is what will ultimately shape your future, not what they feel, not what they think, but what you choose to become from this point forward. As everything settles into its deeper truth and the noise of questions slowly fades, what remains is not confusion but clarity, not illusion, but understanding, because by now you can feel it, you can sense that this story was never just about them marrying someone else, it was about what that moment revealed, what it exposed, what it awakened in both of you, because sometimes life does not separate people to end a connection, sometimes it separates them to show them what that connection truly was, to strip away comfort, timing, and external influences so that the emotional truth can stand alone without distraction, and that is exactly what has happened here, because in choosing a different path, in stepping into a life that looked right on the outside, your soulmate was forced to confront what felt right on the inside, and that contrast became their teacher, their mirror, their silent awakening, because now there is no confusion left within them about what you meant, there is no doubt left about the depth of your connection. There is no illusion left that what they feel can simply disappear over time, because the more they live their current reality, the more they understand the difference between a life that is built on decisions and a connection that is built on truth, and that realization stays with them, not as something loud or dramatic every day, but as something steady, something constant, something that quietly shapes the way they think, the way they feel, the way they remember, and even the way they see you now. Because distance has not reduced your value in their life, it has clarified it, it has amplified it, it has shown them that what they had with you was not ordinary, not replaceable, not something that comes often, and that kind of understanding is powerful, because it changes the way a person carries a connection within them, it turns memories into something sacred. It turns absence into something meaningful, and it turns regret into a quiet truth they cannot ignore. And yet, my beloved child, here is where your final awakening must happen, because while all of this may sound like a story that is leading somewhere, like something that will eventually circle back, you must not lose yourself in that expectation. You must not build your future around their realization, because the real purpose of this entire experience is not to bring them back into your life. It is to bring you back into your own power. It is to show you that you are capable of creating a connection so deep, so real, that even time, distance, and decisions cannot erase its impact, and that is not something to wait on. That is something to recognize within yourself, because the same energy that created that bond still exists in you, the same depth, the same emotional truth, the same ability to connect on a soul level, and that means your story does not end with them, it expands beyond them, it grows into something greater, something more aligned, something that matches the version of you that you are becoming now. Because you are not the same person who once experienced that connection, you have evolved, you have seen more, felt more, understood more, and that growth has shifted your energy, it has raised your awareness, and with that awareness comes a new standard, a new level of alignment that your future must meet, and this is where everything changes, because instead of asking will they come back, you begin to ask what truly aligns with me now, what truly matches my growth, what truly resonates with the person I have become. And when you start asking those questions, your entire focus shifts. From the past to the present, from longing to alignment, from waiting to creating, and that is where your real power lies, because life responds to your state of being, not your state of waiting, and when you stand in your own clarity, when you move forward without needing answers from them, when you release the emotional hold that this situation once had over you, you create space for something new, something real, something that does not come with confusion or regret but with certainty and peace, and that does not mean what you shared with them was not real, it was real, deeply real, but sometimes the purpose of a connection is not to last forever in form, but to transform you forever in essence, to show you your depth, your capacity, your worth, and once that purpose is fulfilled, life begins to guide you towards the next phase, the next experience, the next alignment, and trusting that process is what will set you free, because holding on to what was will only keep you tied to a version of yourself that no longer exists, while letting go opens the door to everything that is meant for you now, and somewhere in their journey, your soulmate will continue to feel what they feel, they will continue to carry the awareness of what was lost, they will continue to understand the truth of your connection in their own way, but that is their path, their lesson, their experience. And you are not here to live inside their realization. You are here to rise beyond it, to take everything you have learned from this, every emotion, every memory, every moment, and use it as fuel to become stronger, clearer, more aligned than ever before, because when you do that, you no longer look back with pain, you look back with understanding. You no longer question why it happened, you accept that it shaped you, and you no longer wait for something to return. You move forward knowing that whatever is truly meant for you will meet you at the level you have risen to, and that is where your story truly begins, not in what they chose, not in what they regret, but in what you now understand about yourself, your power, your worth, and your path ahead.